Welcome back, Tyrants. We are on break this week from One Piece, so I thought I'd do another discussion video, and this time it's going to be about my predictions and kind of what I want to see for chapter 1000 and the chapters leading up to 1000. So we've got two chapters left in between that. We've got 998 and 999 to kind of give us those final few steps of build-up before we hit 1000. And so I want to talk a little bit about what I want to see in the next few chapters in 998 and 999, and then I might talk about a little bit what I think I'll see in 1000. Now, of course, with this being Oda, with this being One Piece, there's no guarantees about what's going to happen. Everything I see in this video could not happen at all. Everything could happen. Honestly, we never know. One Piece tends to subvert expectations in a lot of interesting ways, but I feel like it's always fun to kind of just get your ideas out there anyway. So what I'm going to start with is talking about what I expect to see in chapter 1000, what I expect to see in the giant landmark chapter. And it's kind of like a broken down list of things that I kind of want to see. And on that list I have Luffy, Law, and Kid coming up to Kaido. That's all three of them being at the top of the Skull Dome facing down Kaido. I want to see the death of at least a few scabbards. You know, all of them don't have to die, but I think I do want to see the death of at least, one or two different scabbards. I want to see the final fight setups. So I want to see who each Straw Hat is going against. We've been switching around so often that there isn't really a set schedule for who's going to fight who, and if people are going to fight or not. It's still kind of wonky in an aspect, and I'd like to see some kind of structure on who the final fights are going to be set towards. I want to see Yamato's ability. Whatever she was transforming into, I want to see that either fully explained or fully fleshed out. And I want to see some kind of confirmation on what Kaido is. That being, like, if he's a true dragon, if he's got a devil fruit, if he's some kind of ancient race, if he's an Oni, if he's a human, what is Kaido? I want something on that. That's kind of the list of what I want to see of chapter 1000. Now let's talk about those ideas a little bit. Let's talk about how those things could happen. For Luffy, Law, and Kid to be up there with Kaido at the end, I think is pretty simple. We've got Luffy who's he's in transit from the 3rd floor to the 4th floor right now through the ladder. We've got Kid who's already passed by, so he should be on at least the 4th floor by now. I think he's probably the highest up. And we have Law in the basement. Now, the deal with Law is that he can use shambles and he can just pretty much shoot himself up through the floors very quickly. I don't think he really has to worry about going up floor by floor. So Law getting there isn't really an issue. Kid looks like he's sweeping his way through, and he's got that ton of metal behind him, so I think he's not going to have any issues just pushing forward with sheer force. With Luffy, I think someone's going to stop him, and I think that person is going to be Who's Who. We haven't seen Who's Who for a little bit now, since the whole Drake thing, and I think he's waiting to confront Luffy. Now what's going to happen with that is that Jinbe is going to stop him, and that might be a fight matchup. So Jinbe holds back Who's Who while Luffy goes up to the top. And that's kind of how we get to all three of those characters being up at the top, with Luffy, Law, and Kid. Now, Killer, I think, has two options. I think he either stays back somehow with Jinbe and fights against Who's Who, or Killer ends up there with Kid and Law and Luffy as well. Now, and I say he ends up there as well because he is one of the Supernova. And I think essentially what's going to happen is, like we had the Scabbards versus Kaido, we're going to have the Supernova versus Kaido. So we're going to have Luffy, we're going to have Law, we're going to have Kid, Zoro's going to be up there. So, that makes sense that Killer's going to be up there. I think we're going to see Drake up there at some point. I think we're going to see Apu up there at some point. I think all the Supernovas that are here right now are going to be up facing Kaido at some point in time. As far as figuring out what Kaido is, I think that's going to come from Big Mom and a possible backstory, or just a explanation. Because as we all know, Kaido owes Big Mom some kind of debt. There was something that Big Mom did for Kaido that incurred this lifelong debt that she hasn't forgotten. And what that is, what that could entail for Kaido, could be something that kept him alive or something that kind of gave him more power. So I'm wondering, Does Big Mom have anything to do with how he got his dragon powers? Could she have acquired a fruit that, since she already had a fruit, she gave to Kaido? Is that a possibility? Does Big Mom know something about why Kaido's so impossible to kill? What does Big Mom know? What does Big Mom have on Kaido? And how will that change how we view Kaido and how the story continues to progress? Because with Big Mom heading up there, I don't think she's going to betray Kaido just yet. I don't really see the point in her starting this alliance just to immediately betray him. She hasn't got anything out of it. Nothing's really changed for her by announcing this alliance. Either way, if she goes against Kaido now, that kind of just puts her back at square one. So at this point, I think she's going up there to not necessarily assist with Kaido, but to talk with Kaido. And at this point, I think we'll get some information on what Kaido is about. And with that being said, if we learn about what Kaido's about, I think that'll tell us what Yamato's about. I think that'll give us insight on what Yamato is. Because if we figure out maybe that Kaido is a dragon, that kind of gives us some intel that, a dragon as in not with the fruit, but he's a true dragon. That gives us insight on what Yamato is, as maybe she is the offspring of a dragon, so she's a dragon herself. Or if we realize that Kaido's been given a fruit, or Kaido has a fruit, we can confer that Yamato probably has a fruit. She is probably not an animal that's transforming into something. She has a fruit that transforms her. So with Big Mom giving us some intel, that kind of tells us things about not only Kaido, but Yamato as well. On the other end of that, we could get Yamato revealing it herself. At this point, she said that they can't escape via the sea. Well, is flying an option? Can she transform into a dragon and fly on flame clouds, since she already knows how that works? What could cause Yamato to go into her transformation? Because we'll need to see that. We didn't get the glimpse of it for nothing, He didn't just show us just a little slight transformation for us to not see it for a very long time. I think it's coming sooner than later. And as far as the Scabbards go, I think before Big Mom, or maybe even during Big Mom, arriving up there, I think Kaido has some last words for the Scabbards. Maybe, Kinemon or Denjiro, they're like kind of clinging to consciousness, and Kaido has, one or two last words for them before he puts them out. Now, as far as death for Scabbards, I would say that the only ones that are safe are Nekomamushi, Inuyasha, and Izo. Those are the only ones that I would mark as not having huge death flags. I think Kinemon just being the leader and kind of just having the most, I think, to lose from this fight, I think that gives him a good line to be killed. Denjiro's kind of second in line for that. I think he's been living up for this moment. So what happens after that, If he doesn't die here, what is he doing after this? So I definitely see those two having big death flags. Raizo I see having a death flag just because of what happened on Zao and why he was so important there, and how his death could mean, they did what they could to protect him, and they did their jobs. Neku and Ino, they still have a place to rule. They still have things to do as rulers of the kingdom, so I don't think they're dying here. Kawamatsu, I don't really see going either way. I don't think we've gotten enough from Kawamatsu to feel like he's going to die, but I also don't feel like we have enough to see what's going to happen after this fight. So Kawamatsu is a little bit weird. I see Kiku dying just because of the damage Kiku's already taken, and how that would kind of affect Izo. And that's kind of like my idea on the Scabbards. I definitely think we need to see some death from the Scabbards, maybe not all, but some, just to solidify what their purpose was and what their sacrifice means for Wano. And now on to the final fight setup and what I expect to get out of that. Now, we have the Tobiropo and we have the Straw Hats as the main contenders for fights. We also have the two commanders, because I don't consider Jack coming back quite yet. He may come back at the end, but he got dealt a lot of damage, so we'll see how long it takes for him to come back. So we have Tobiropo, we have Straw Hats, and we have the two commanders. As far as who needs main fights, the way I've broken it down is based on what we've seen so far. and what I think could possibly happen. Of course, and more likely than not, these will probably turn out to not be true, or there could be some change up in what happens, but this is just what I myself am predicting. But for fights, I see one, Sasaki versus Franky. I think that's been set up pretty well as far as Franky's kind of been in and out of the picture for a little bit. And with him showing up to Sasaki, Sasaki being ready to fight, and Yamato taking out Hacha, I think that kind of sets up the field for a good fight between Franky and Sasaki. The Armored Core doesn't really matter because we have General Shogun there. I don't think they're going to do anything to General Shogun, so I think it's pretty much going to end up being a fight between Franky and Sasaki. Then I have Who's Who versus Jinbei, and this is with the exception of he might get an additional person to fight against Who's Who with. So like it might be Jinbei and maybe Sanji versus Who's Who, Jinbei and Killer versus Who's Who, or it might just be Jinbei and Who's Who. But I think Who's Who is going to be the boss that's kind of waiting to stop Luffy from getting to Kaido. So that's where I think that fight comes in. I don't think he's going to be too interested in fighting Drake right now. I see that we have Queen and we had Who's Who are kind of antagonizing Drake for the most part for being a traitor. But we haven't seen Who's Who since the explosion, and Queen's kind of been dealing with Drake, so I think Who's Who has moved on to different things. Then we have Robin versus Black Maria, and this fight I think is going to be kind of like the saving fight between Sanji and Black Maria, because Sanji's up there, he's not going to fight her, he's probably not going to fight a lot of people around. I think he can get free of his ties, but escaping might be difficult if he's not going to fight. And that's where I think Robin comes in, because we've kind of been pitting Robin against Ulti and Black Maria since the beginning. And I think Ulti's fight's going to be saved for someone else. I see Black Maria being a good fight for Robin. For Page One and Ulti, I see kind of a collab effort between a few Straw Hats, because I don't necessarily think Usopp and Nami are done fighting completely. I think they can't really take any more damage, but I mean, Usopp's a sniper and Nami's also kind of a long range combatant, so they're going to be kind of providing support for what I think is going to be Chopper and Brook, and them taking on Ulti and Page One. Now, with the power discrepancy, I think Chopper is going to have to go Monster Point if he really wants to tangle with these two. But I see that they're probably coming together, and I think that's probably going to be the closest thing to a fight we'll get. And I also think that they'll have assistance from Tama as well, and Hirokibi Dangos. So, with Page One and Ulti, we've seen them take damage from a few characters, so they've already been through the ringer a little bit. So I think kind of having some of the weaker of the Straw Hats take those two on makes sense, just because I don't see them getting any higher than that. I don't see them taking on Sasaki or Who's Who or anything like that. I think they kind of have to stay at this level. And that's not to say that Page One and Ulti are particularly weak, just that they've taken damage already and they've been fighting for a bit now, so they've got some wear and tear on them that might make them easier to take down. And now for the commander fights. So for Queen, I have him going up against Apu, Drake, and Hawkins. And this is before they end up getting up to Kaido, because I don't think they're going to be up there quite yet. But I think Apu, Drake, and Hawkins are going to be fighting against Queen. No, I don't think Apu's out for the count. I know he got pretty much one shot by Zoro last chapter, but I don't think he's out completely. I think he's just going to be down for a little bit, enough for Zoro to move ahead, but not necessarily down completely. And I mean, he's already got the grudge against Queen set up. Queen had him running around for life or death. And even though him and Drake don't like each other, they have a bigger enemy to deal with. Drake fighting Apu does nothing for Drake, and it doesn't hurt the Beast Pirates at all. So there's no real reason for Drake to fight Apu other than he doesn't like him. Same for Apu. Apu beating Drake doesn't do anything. Apu's already on kind of like the kill list for Queen, so there's no real redemption or anything for Apu. At this point, I see them turning on Queen. And with Hawkins, I see him looking at his cards and seeing the odds are in favor of those fighting against Queen than fighting for him. So I feel like he's going to make his switch here soon as well. And the final matchup I have is for King, and that's going to be with Marco. So Marco just showed up and he's talking about getting the Straw Hats to move forward. He's saying they're the main fighting force and they have to get going in order to take care of business. So what I think is going to happen is King is going to end up being blocked by Marco as, like, you know, Zoro moves up to the top. And the reason I think this is because it's kind of played out in the last chapter where Zoro says, I really want to get up to the top, but I'm being blocked. Like, it's not going to be easy because of Queen and King. So what has to happen is they have to get blocked somehow. And as Zoro was talking about that, Marco comes in and pretty much says, what can I do for you guys? Therefore, I think his role is going to come into play with holding off King. Now, what I think could also happen is that before Zoro goes straight up, he has to fight with King a little bit. So maybe this leads to a situation where Zoro and Marco are kind of taking on King, and then at some point, Marco decides to hold King off long enough for Zoro to make his way to the top. Another possibility for this is that while King and Marco are like having a scuffle and Zoro makes his way up to the top, Sanji comes in, and Sanji ends up helping Marco fight King, and that could be a setup. You know, I mean, it's possible that Marco could handle this on his own, but I do think that at some point, one of the top Straw Hats has to fight a top commander. And if Zoro is going straight to Kaido, that means Sanji kind of has to come in and fight. Because I think Jinbei's going to be preoccupied. I don't think he's going to be fighting Queen or King. So I think that kind of leaves Sanji as the only one to kind of be that role, kind of fit that role. And what better than helping Marco fight King? And this comes from his kind of losing situation with Black Maria, where if Robin kind of relieves him from fighting Black Maria, then he can move on and fight someone else, kind of like what happened in Eslabi, where he couldn't fight Khalifa, but he went on to fight Jabra, and he left Nami in charge of fighting Khalifa. Well, he got beat and Nami took it on to fight Khalifa, but the same idea applies. Like, he's losing this fight and going to join another, and I think that's what's going to happen here. And to put a fine wrap on things, I want to talk about Kaido. I want to talk about Kaido's Devil Fruit, his origins, and what I expect to get from him out of Chapter 1000. Now, here are my thoughts on the Kaido is a true dragon idea. I don't subscribe to it, not yet. I think that there is evidence there that could prove that maybe, you know, he's a true dragon, but I don't think I want to fully jump into that wagon. For me, there are a few things that tell me that if Kaido is a true dragon, that things would have gone differently. Like God Valley, for example. I don't see Roger and Garp beating the Rocks Pirates if Kaido had this dragon ability. If he could literally lift islands, you know, do invisible slashes, breathe fire. If they had this kind of firepower, including Big Mom, Whitebeard, Rocks himself, Shiki, they don't win that. I mean, Garp and Roger are very powerful, but that's too much of a heavy lineup for them to win. I just don't see that being possible. So that's to say, I think Kaido got this ability after he was on the Rocks Pirates, or maybe when he was leaving the Rocks Pirates. And I'll call back to like the Big Mom thing. Maybe as a parting gift, Big Mom gave him this fruit so he could go and do his own thing, because he was just an apprentice. You know, he wasn't as powerful, as strong as he is now, so maybe Big Mom gave him that buff. I do, however, see him being something more than just human. Like, I'm not shy to the idea of him being an Oni or from an Oni race. I think that's definitely a possibility, and it could be that he's maybe the last one, or one of the last few Onis that exist. Big Mom says she doesn't have 3 races, so maybe what we're looking at is the giant race, whatever King is, and the Oni race. Maybe those are the 3 that she just doesn't have. And it's interesting because it seems like Kaido has all 3 of those races. Kaido has these, while they're probably artificial, he has giants. He has an Oni and possibly himself, and he has whatever King is. So it's kind of like the 3 things that Big Mom doesn't have, Kaido has. We kind of get that parallel. And you have to think about what Kaido's doing here on Onigashima, what he's doing with the ancient giants and why he's having those recreated. It seems like he has a deeper connection to a different race than just human. it seems like he has a connection to, I don't know, maybe the ancient giant race, the continent puller race, who are pretty much giants, but they look like Oni giants. So maybe there's some kind of connection there. And we have Big Mom referring to Kaido as a thing, indicating that at the very least he's not human. He's not your standard human, and we know he's the world's strongest creature. So there's definitely credence to him being more than, just a human. But I wouldn't say there's enough to say he's definitely a dragon. I would say Oni fits the bill really well, and an Oni who ate the mythical dragon fruit seems to be the wheelhouse that I'm in. That's kind of where I sit. And I what I'm hoping is that with 98, 99, and 1000, we get more insight on that. With Big Mom and Kaido getting ready to face each other, we get more insight on what just Kaido is. But yes, I am absolutely excited for chapter 1000. Now, like I said, everything I said in this video could be completely wrong. Oda has this way of going against the grain and kind of taking us on mind trips where we don't necessarily expect it. And what happened in 1000 could be something that no one expects. Honestly, I'm just happy to be getting to chapter 1000. That's kind of where I'm sitting. Like, if I'm right, if I'm wrong, if something entirely huge happens, if maybe it's not as big, I'm kind of going into 1000 with just the happiness that it's 1000. I'm not really expecting the world to be rewritten in 1000. I think just hitting this milestone is amazing in itself, and being on this One Piece journey has been amazing. So just getting to 1000, that's kind of enough for me. That makes me happy in itself. Anything after that, it's just a bonus. It's a plus. Now, I know that Oda does like to do special things on these landmark chapters, and he's been trying to get to 1000 now. So I do think that he's got something big planned. But like I said, I'm just down to be here. I'm just down to read it and enjoy. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know your predictions. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I was saying. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Have a great day.